think one of the things we're going to get out of today is just what does it mean to be human? Maybe we get that secret today, but who knows? I would love for you all to start introducing yourself, and I would love to also hear, like, where are you from? Where did you spend the first 6 years? You wouldn't mind going first?
Sure. My name is Ty Anderson. I'm an actress, an author, and a speaker. And I spent my first 6 years in Orange County, California, where I could see the fireworks from Disneyland from my living room.
Really? Okay.
That's tough to follow. I didn't grow up with fireworks. But I'm Emma Husk. I am a filmmaker, specifically a writer and a director. And I spent my first years in Davidson, North Carolina, in a small little town where I could ride my bike all around everywhere and not have to worry about anything, because it was pretty as tiny as you could get.
Okay. Love that. We have next.
I'm Sam. I am an intimacy coordinator in training, and I was born in Michigan, and my dad was a tire builder, and we moved south when he got laid off when I was really little, and I grew up in Tennessee, mostly in a really small town.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Kenneth Nance Jr. I spent the first 6 years of my life in Florence, South Carolina, and we used to have this pond in our backyard, and I used to get tadpoles. Yeah, that was really dope. I am an actor slash paralegal slash director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So we have North Carolina, South Carolina. We got Michigan, and Orange County. They're just leaving you out.
On the way out there.
So obviously, what I've heard is no one's from here. We might go there, we might not, but I'm very curious. In the last couple of years, what have been some major changes that you've gone through? And I would love for you to describe that for the folks today.
Wow. I've been through a lot in the last couple of years, but in the most recent 2 to 4 years, I've gone through a divorce, 3 layoffs, from full-time employment, raising 2 kids on my own. Father's still in the picture, but just that daily grind of being a mom. So it's been a lot. It's been a lot. Death, of a close friend, but maintaining.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
Being it that it's so much, the first question that comes to me is there has to be days when it's overwhelming, beyond a shadow of a doubt. What's one thing? One thing, it could be maybe you go back to the memories of Disneyland. What's one thing that keeps you grounded?
I wish Disneyland could cut it.
So true.
I wish Disneyland could cut it, but honestly, it's been my faith. My faith has been what has grounded me through everything. And sometimes that feels hard, but I believe those are the times where you have to press in a little bit more. Yeah. So it's definitely been my faith.
Yeah, we'll come back to that, because you have what I like to call sometimes the triple whammy, and you have multiple. You have death, you've had layoffs, and the loss of a relationship. So much there. We'll come back. Emma, how about yourself?
These past couple years have been definitely a big transition, but almost in the sense that it feels like my life has actually sort of come into focus a little bit more. I, up until 2 years ago, was a student and was just sort of going, through the path that I very much understood, very digestible. You go to school, you pick what you're going to study, and then you try to make it work after you graduate. And that whole trying to make it work after you graduate thing has definitely been a bumpy road, and I think a lot of things sort of, like I said, clicked into focus for me when I moved to Atlanta. And I wanted to pursue that transition from my hometown, living with my family, living at my parents' house, to moving out on my own, to see if I could really find a passion in film, because that's what I studied, and I wanted to give it a real shot before I submitted to maybe a job with a little bit more financial stability or a little bit more dependability. And I have unfortunately found that I do love it, and I would like to continue to make a career out of that and see what that looks like. But I think it started with a lot of denial almost, that I was feeling like almost a little bit hesitant to commit, because then once I did, it was just a matter of like, okay, now you have to do it, and now it's just a matter of what that looks like. So I think there was almost just a little bit of hesitance to accept what it was that I loved, and then follow that up with the belief in myself enough to do it. So it's been a really great past year. The year before that was kind of all over the place as far as feeling like I was floating after graduation, but feeling a little bit more grounded now, which is good.
Yeah. There's a thing that's coming up for me. You mentioned this like acceptance. It's almost like a guilty pleasure that you had that you didn't quite allow yourself to indulge in it. Maybe a hard question, but what would you say was preventing you from really saying, this is the thing that I love, this is the thing that like I could pursue?
Oh, fear.
Say more?
Fear of failure, or fear of success, or just, I think there's such a hesitance to like legitimize myself as a creative. And even though I was in school for it, it still felt lesser than compared to my friends that were in business school, which, you know, fares true in certain like parameters, so I get that. But I think there was maybe just a little bit of a lack of like foresight. Like I don't think I was able to see what my life could actually look like if I were to choose this and pursue this. But I think the acceptance of like the beauty of a path in creativity or a professional sort of world in that is that like you don't have to know what the future will look like, because you are completely at liberty to create whatever that looks like. So I think accepting the unknown and accepting the fact that it'll probably change a year from now, but yeah, it's definitely been something to come to terms with.
Yeah. Oh, I have so much more to pull there, but we might come back. Sam, how about yourself?
Trying to decide where I start. There's been so much change. I was also divorced. I was married for 15 years and a high school math and psychology teacher. And then after my divorce, I started exploring my queerness, and I came out as polyamorous and got really into learning more about sex education and went through a program with that. And then that led me to interest in intimacy coordination in the film industry. I also had a major surgery in 2019, so 2020 was a big year of change. But yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, the tip of the iceberg. I'm curious around the exploration around that. Do you have a end state, or is there something you're moving towards?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I feel motivated to keep moving towards the intimacy coordinator path. But I think more specifically, I had a coach a few years ago who since is not my coach anymore. She's now like my best friend. But I remember her saying something to me about following what lights me up, and that really sticking with me. I'm a perfectionist, and I have obsessive compulsive disorder, and so I related to what you said about fear, but I think more specifically for me, it's like, am I going to do it right, or am I going to do it perfectly? And so I think it's been a little bit more, you know, also coming from a math brain, like a little bit more of like trying to just follow that, like follow what lights me up. But we also live in capitalism, so.
We do. We do. I have this like, as you were describing that, it's this analogy of you're driving on a very foggy road, and there's a light at the end, and as you get, you're seeing this like sliver of a light, and then the more you move towards it and make the choice, the brighter it becomes, and the more it makes you feel like yourself. So much more there. We're coming back. We're coming back. Kenneth.
Life changes that I have gone through the past year. The loss of a relationship. I got broken up with 3 or 4 days before my birthday, and a month before the event of the wedding. The strike affected actors, directors, producers, pretty much everybody. That's been going on for a year, and we're still dealing with the after effects of that. My body went through a lot of different injuries, from my hips to my knees and everything in between. A lot of multiple deaths in my family and friend circle, friends and otherwise, family members. Yeah, that's a lot of it.
That's a lot. Oftentimes, we don't talk about this a lot, but for folks who are deep in the somatic experiences, there is an idea that things that happen up here affects here and vice versa. And so hearing you talk about the changes to your body, I'm very curious if you've thought through that, like some of the changes that you've gone through, whether it's the breakup or the loss of a job, how that would have affected the body and vice versa.
I haven't before, but that's interesting. Some of this started happening before any of, the bottom fell out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't thought about that before.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah, that might very well have something to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing, as you mentioned, it started before, was like, the joke is that the body picks up stuff way quicker than the mind can comprehend.
Facts.
So it might have been signals.
Yeah, big facts.
One theme that keeps coming up, it's just the idea of like being on a path. All of you are on a path, a particular path, and then you're no longer on that path. Obviously, I can't imagine none of y'all thought it would be here. I'd love to hear. How do you mourn the past? The past version of yourself, the past thing that other people expected you to be, a 15-year relationship, marriage, I don't know how long yours was.
17 years by the time it was finalized.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Whoa.
How do you do it, or what does that even look like, or what does that look like for you? Anyone?
That's a good
I feel
question.
like grief is, I feel like sometimes we shy away, or maybe I should just speak for myself. I shy away from grief, and I've tried to get more familiar with it the last probably 4 or 5 years. I mean, because I don't really have a choice in a lot of ways. So I think sometimes that shows up unexpectedly. Like, I was thinking about my old house that I lived in with my ex-husband, like last night when I was drifting off to sleep, and it was so weird because I'm like, I haven't thought about that in a long time, but like I left a dresser there that was my dresser when I was growing up because I didn't want it anymore, but and it was kind of an odd thing to come to my brain, but I think that's kind of an example of maybe just like little ways that grief shows up, and I try to be a little bit more open to welcoming that in. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I think you have to, part of my frustration and learning curve was learning to be okay with the fact that you're not okay, or learning to let yourself feel what you feel, because there's such a feeling of I need to get past this that, it's been a year and some change now, and I'll still have moments of anger, of frustration, of intense emotion, and that'll in turn make me angrier because I'm like, I'm supposed to be past this by now. Like, nah. And learning to just let yourself feel it. And I hate this phrase, but it is so true. And actually, Ty actually said this to me the other day when we were talking about it. Give yourself grace. Like, that's a loaded phrase, but give yourself grace to move through what you need to move through. Because the more you try to get past it, the only way out is through. The more you just try to skip that step, the more it's going to suck, and the longer you're going to stay there.
I think another point is allowing yourself to feel exactly how you want to feel and not allowing someone else to dictate what that's supposed to look like.
That's a good one.
Or when you're supposed to get over it, or how you're supposed to grieve, or how you're supposed to heal. It is your own process, and you have to own that. And something that I have found was taking ownership and responsibility for where I was in life. And although there were things that I did not do to contribute to where I was, in terms of my divorce, in terms of, losing a job, there were things that I did do. And so once I took ownership for those things, it made it a lot easier for me to cope, because I could be like, oops, yep, I maybe should not have said that.
Yeah.
And when I accept that, then it's like, okay, I can understand that. And those days where I was having a hard time, like Kenneth said, we would talk, and what he would say is, what I'm not about to do is let you talk about my friend.
True.
So you have to give yourself grace, because you wouldn't allow someone else to talk to your friend poorly. So
Right.
how can you talk to yourself poorly? So
That's
give
a
yourself
good thing to
grace.
remember.
Yeah.
That also feels like if sometimes you don't have control over the fact that you won't get closure with something, like you have to make it. You have to like just decide what your closure is going to be, and who's going to say yes, it's done, I can like move on. And like creating that for yourself is a weird thing,
1000%.
but it I think helps process, like the end of a chapter or something that will never be the same again. I think that's a weird like parallel to think about, and I'm sure we all get like the year ago today you were here, 2 years ago today you were here. Like
I hate
oh
these
my
books
God.
sometimes.
It's like it's maddening, but it's also like, damn, I was having a really good day last year and I'm having a shit day today, but like at least, things totally move and change in ways that I don't even realize are happening. And I think it can definitely drive you crazy a little bit to think about like what was, that is totally not your reality now. But I don't know. I think the evolution of things on your terms, and then also like just letting go of what can completely not be
Because
on
you're
your
right,
terms.
I'm sorry may never come.
No, yeah, no.
Closure may never come, an
Yeah.
explanation may
Yeah.
never come, and you just have to kind of be like, okay.
Yeah.
And I decided for myself that I wanted my next chapter to be better than my last chapter. And so everything that I say and do have to line up with that intention.
That's awesome.
And if it doesn't, then I have to release it.
I gotta write that
And
down.
It's hard.
That's good. That's
even
good
yes
stuff.
ending that, like closure not only may not ever come, but if you do get that closure, more than likely, it'll be when you don't need it anymore.
So true.
The apology will come way after it's due. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, so good. I have so many strings I want to pull on. Why don't we go there, Kenneth? You talk about closure might never come. And the thing that when you say that comes for me is that, man, what is bliss? Like, I'd imagine you guys have gone through some iteration of what feels good. We're not all there yet, but we're moving towards something. I am curious if we have an idea of what bliss state looks like for us, and how would you describe that in this moment? It might change in 5 months,
Right.
but in this moment.
In this moment, I think I would describe bliss as contentment with where you are. And that could mean a lot of different things, right? Like content with your career path, content with your work, your life, your at-home life, but mostly content with yourself and who you are, and learning that what that is a very fluid concept. Yourself, like you said, could change in 5 months. Yourself can change for the worse or for the better. And being okay with always learning who that person is from day to day is very, I think that's really bliss.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Is that bringing up anything else for anyone?
I related to a lot about the way or where we are, because I noticed, like you said, like some of us are, and I don't know if the intention was like some of us aren't there yet. Like I think it's a thing it is one thing to work towards a goal, but also like I think as someone who can be very goals oriented and be looking towards the next thing, I have to like keep myself in check about like, well, what is it right now that you're loving right now, you know? So I super related to that.
What does that balance look like for you today between potential? I don't know if you have goals, but assuming that there's some goals, because it seems like you're a goal-oriented person versus I have a process that I'm trusting.
Yeah. I think accepting things that come into my life, like I wrote out some things the other day, and some words that really stood out to me were both discipline and surrender, like the idea of both of those existing at the same time. Because I think that, again, as somebody that can be perfectionistic, sometimes I can like wait to make a decision until I think that is just right. But then usually if I go ahead and make a decision, that actually is more the right thing to do. And I even think about like right now, there's some things showing up in my life that like I didn't expect, and I'm finding a lot of joy in those unexpected things. So
the idea of surrender and acceptance. One question I want to come back to, I think Emma and Sam touched on it, but I don't know if we can expand more, Ty or Kenneth, but this idea is like, how does fear show up for y'all today?
Y'all, I literally was fearful yesterday. I could not make a decision on even just the smallest things. And then I started beating myself up because I was like, Ty, these are really simple things. I mean, literally down to, should I cut my hair or should I, like, I was freaking out.
That's a big decision.
That's a huge thing, okay?
But I've cut it really short, like really super pixie short before. So it's like I should not have been as fearful as I was, but I was so stuck. And so something my dad always says is to seek wise counsel. And in that moment, wise counsel was my mom.
Always.
And so I told her the things that was going on. I said, I overcommitted with this one thing, and should I submit this ad for this other thing? I'd have to spend this money. And she's like, yes. Yeah. I mean, she made it super easy and gave me, the reasoning behind it. And so sometimes you have to just go outside of yourself and allow your tribe to sort of speak to you because they know you best. And if you have the right people in the right seats in your tribe, then you know that whatever they say is going to benefit you. So that's how I get over it. Sometimes I'm able to do it for myself, and other times I have to seek wise counsel.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I have a really interesting relationship with fear because I'm terrified to do anything. But when people see me, they just think I'm this confident, like, cocky, arrogant person. So I had to learn to, at first I would flat out reject fear and do things that made me afraid just to spite fear, such as like skydiving, for example. But now I've learned, like, for example, the fear of vulnerability showed up for me 3 times this week. So I knew it was something like, okay, I really needed to confront. But not so much to be spiteful of fear, but to embrace it. Embracing vulnerability is something that kind of manifested itself after the life challenges of the past few years. And learning to embrace that, I think the key is feel the fear, but do it anyway. And that's kind of my mantra when it comes to that. But don't reject it. Embrace it, because it's there to protect you. It's there for a reason. Fear and anxiety are there for a reason. And you just have to put it in its place.
Anything else?
I feel like you wanted to add something. I feel like you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
I think I'm just kind of in a contemplative place about like everything you're saying. I feel like I experience something fearful every day. I don't know though, like I agree with you. Like I think a lot of times we talk about, especially, I think it's a popular thing right now to talk about like regulating our nervous systems and like, yeah, I think that's great, but I agree with you. I think like, you know, we're meant to feel these feelings so we can respond to things appropriately. Fear warns us sometimes. Yeah.
See, I be knowing what I be talking about.
All right, we got two more before we wrap up. The last one, which you kind of mentioned it, which we're not even realizing, this idea of outsourcing, and we don't talk about it enough. I'm curious, you kind of hinted on it, but what does that look like in our lives? This idea of, and when I mean outsourcing is, sometimes we need someone to help us to make the decision. Sometimes we need help. You know, we need to get into different groups, and like we can't all depend on that one person for the same thing. We need people to tap us on the shoulder. So I'm curious of like, how might that show up in your life, and what might it look like today?
I feel like I've had an interesting relationship with asking for help and wanting to do everything by myself. I'm living on my own for the first time, and it's exciting, and I know it's like a life milestone, and I'm gonna look back and be like, "Oh, you're yours in your one bedroom." But also, I go literally stir crazy. Like I want to do a million things, but I can't make one choice. Like then I get stuck in the decision paralysis of how do I structure a day, especially with an industry that's a little bit, frivolous as far as there's no schedule. There no week looks the same. But like just coming to terms with the fact that me on my own doesn't mean that I have to be everything for myself. And like it's totally fine and so natural to need to like call on your mom or call on a friend or run things by multiple people, just to sort of have the diversity of thought. And like that can be comforting even when I'm alone in my place and need to literally phone a friend. And I think that is why surrounding yourself with good people is so important. And I definitely am a firm believer in the fact that like you are the company that you keep, because when you are in those sort of vulnerable states and really need some sound, insight, like you have to be able to trust that the people that you're going to call, when you're literally in that fight or flight state, are going to be the ones to ground you and sort of help you to the answer that you need to find, rather than, project their own thing or whatever that may look like. So protecting yourself is also like protecting the people you have around you and how you guys can have that relationship as you grow together.
Yeah, thank you.
Love that.
What else? Who else?
I don't think anybody makes it by themselves. You have to embrace the season of, a lot of people will call it loneliness, but I don't necessarily believe it's loneliness. It's being by yourself and being comfortable with it, while also embracing the people that love you. And let people love you. Like, your friends in your circle are there for a reason. And if you chose them right, and even if you didn't, love will manifest itself in a lot of different ways. My closest friends, a lot of them don't even live in the same state, but in my hour of need, they showed up for me big. And my family showed up for me huge. And that, that can be a really wonderful thing.
Thank you, man.
I wanted to add to something Emma said too about living alone for the first time. I think I've also, in 2020, lived alone for the first time. I've enjoyed it so much, by the way. But I think that one thing that I've been really committed to, and this connects both of y'all's comments, is I felt like a lot of my personhood was centered around my marriage, and I think as a person, and even in a culture, I think in our culture we can tend to think or defer to nesting partners or defer to primary partners for community. And it's been an intention of mine to like build an unconventional community the last 4 years. Yeah, and it's been hard at times, but I also feel like it's allowed me to expand and to like reach out more when, you know, when those things come up that you mentioned too. Because I'm not that close to my family or my original family, whatever you call that, biological family. So yeah, building community has been really important.
It's funny how you don't, when you're married, sometimes you don't realize that you've sort of alienated yourself from the outside world and you've not really built this community outside of your home.
Yeah.
And so for myself, after my divorce, I realized, oh my gosh, I don't even know myself. And do I like the friends that I have? And like I started questioning everything. And so now I'm on this path to like discovering myself and discovering what I want out of life and who I want and in it. And do I want people, I want the people that know me, but I also want people who are where I'm going. So that way they don't necessarily know my past. Not that I'm hiding my past, I'm open about it. But in order for me to become the woman that I want to be, I have to have people around me who are ready for my future.
That's a bar.
And I relate to that. That self-discovery piece too, like back to your question about bliss, like that has been blissful for me. Like, you know, figuring out like what it is I want without centering around a relationship or another human being. Not that relationships aren't important, but
You have to be your own anchor.
Yeah.
Alrighty. We're gonna wrap up. Think back. I usually say 5 years in the past, but it could just be even an earlier version of that. What's one advice, one piece of advice that you'd share with your younger self or someone in your scenario?
Love everybody's like, ooh. I'm going to go biblical here. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not into thine own understanding. Acknowledge him in all ways and he will direct your path.
Good one.
Right?
What else?
I really liked what you were talking about with fear and that using it almost as like a guidepost. Because, you know, reflecting on that fear that I talked about, I would tell my younger self that all of the things that scared you were inherently right for you. And that being intimidated isn't something to shy away from.
Yeah, that's a good one. What else we got?
I'm gonna go back to that comment about following what lights you up.
Yeah.
But I think I would add the caveat of, and you don't have to do it perfectly.
True.
That.
Very true.
All right.
And I'd say trust God, find your voice, stay humble, and give yourself grace.
So good.
That's a good one. You did that.
It's been a pleasure today having you all here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
This has been so amazing and so heart-filling. Thank you.